All right, as we've been reporting, Donald Trump and his legal team vowing to fight new charges against him.
But this case has far-reaching political implications. So joining us now is Washington Post deputy politics editor for campaigns, Sean Sullivan, who is also a CBS News contributor. Hey there, Sean. So tell us, what are the concerns from the Republican Party about Trump's arraignment that took place yesterday, especially now if he becomes the GOP presidential nominee?
Yeah, and, even before this indictment that former President Trump is facing, there had been worries bubbling up in the Republican Party dating back to last fall in the midterm elections that Trump and his movement and the candidates that he has associated himself with could be a liability for the party in the future. There's Republicans who worry that he's too polarizing a figure. They point to the 2018 midterms, the 2020 election, and the 2022 midterms, and they say, look, these were not good elections for Republicans. Republican candidates lost in a lot of races. A lot of candidates who were associated with Trump's brand or who were endorsed by him lost. So there has been this sort of widespread fear among some in the party that he is just too polarizing a figure and that this hurts Republicans' ability to compete in future elections, including in 2024 if he's the nominee. And now when you add this indictment to the picture, there are Republicans who say, look, this is even more reason why we need to move on from former President Trump. We need to rally behind a new standard bearer. But with all that said, there is still a strong and loyal movement of Republican voters. We see this showing up in polls. We see this showing up in the crowds he's still able to attract at rallies who still support him, who still see him as a viable presidential nominee in the future and somebody who they view as the leader of the Republican Party. So we're seeing a bit of a conflict right now in the Republican Party between some who say, look, we want to move on from Donald Trump, and others who say, no, we should stick with him. This is how we win in the future.
It's interesting, too, because some Republicans appear to almost be saying both things at the same time. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was like, we won't extradite you. You're safe here in Florida. Meanwhile, clearly, there's a political advantage to this damage toward former President Trump. How do you think it changes existing strategies? We know folks like Asa Hutchinson from Arkansas have said that Trump needs to step aside, but he's not really a national figure yet. So how is it changing the formula?
Yeah, I mean, there are some in the party who believe that this, in the short term at least, could strengthen former President Trump's standing and strengthen his hand. And you mentioned some of the reactions that we've seen from other Republican officials and leaders. It's pretty striking that, you typically, when a candidate for office is indicted, that is seen, widely and pretty roundly as a negative on their record. But it's pretty striking that we've seen a lot of Republicans not criticize Trump about this, but actually rally to his defense, echo his comments trying to disparage the case against him and say that this is a politically motivated attack. And I think that shows the strength that he still has in the party right now. There are some Republicans, you mentioned Asa Hutchinson, Chris Christie's another one, who have said, look, it's never a good thing objectively when somebody, faces an indictment. And I would also add that this may not be the last legal peril that Trump faces. There are other investigations that other entities are looking at him right now, including in Georgia as well. And so if this does continue, if we do see more indictments, the question then becomes, how do Republicans see this in the aggregate? I think right now it's too early to judge how this will shape what voters think about next year when they're going to the polls in Iowa and New Hampshire. But certainly right now there are Republicans and a lot of allies of Trump who think that there will be at least a short-term rallying effect. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of Republicans show some hesitance to try to criticize or disparage him over this indictment.
All right. Sean Sullivan, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.